we're going to use for our topic today a psalm of trust. A psalm of trust. And while it would seem that there are a lot of psalms that talk about trust, this one is somewhat unique because the concepts of trust is found more in this psalm, relatively more than any of the other psalms. And so, hence, we designate that title for this particular psalm, a psalm of trust. As we go through this particular psalm, you're going to hopefully be able to identify 3 points and walk away with 3 points, and that is, number one, David's perspective of crisis. And secondly, God's provisions for crisis. And finally, Christ's perspective of the cross. Again, and of course, there's a lot more that we're going to be sharing. And honestly, this is not necessarily an outline, but these are at least some things that you should be able to, again, walk away with. Again, how David perceived crisis. And there are different categories of crisis, and we will touch on that as well. But I think before we actually get into it, in this particular case, it would be fitting to break it down into an outline. And I don't know if I ever shared with you before, Psalms is one of my least favorite books. Again, so just pray for me. Again, honestly, when I know, folks talk about, the Psalms are so beautiful. I don't know what they're seeing. I look at Psalms and I see stuff that leaves me scratching my head at first glance. And for me, it's one of the most difficult books that I've taught in the 30 some odd years of pastoring. The other writings, again, the narratives, they're pretty much straightforward. But when it comes to poetry, poetry is written in such a way where it is designed where you can look at it from different perspectives and you will be able to see different truths. And so, again, that becomes problematic. And even when it comes to outlining the Psalms, there are different ways of doing that. And so a possible outline that I want to present to you today, this is the one that I'm convinced of, and I think it's, or at least, again, it's the one that I'm going to stand on. It's in 3 parts. The Psalms is in 3 parts. The first part is verses 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the first part deals with David's hope during imminent danger. Imminent danger. The second part of the psalm is slightly different. And honestly, you don't see it until you actually look in the original language. And so the second part of the Psalms is verses 5 through 18, and it deals with David's hope during times of trouble, which is different from imminent danger. For 2020, the year 2020, it was a time of trouble for many, many people. It's just a time of trouble. Imminent danger is when you are driving on the street and you enter the intersection on a green light and you see a tractor-trailer truck traveling 45 miles per hour getting ready to broadside you. That's imminent danger. That's imminent. You need help right then because your life is at stake. Not your well-being, not your job, not your health. Your life is at stake. That is imminent danger. And so, again, we subconsciously know what is our hope during times of imminent danger. And, people of the world even know what it is too. And so that's why, again, when you see that truck bearing down on you, again, first thing that comes out of many of our mouths is Jesus. Because he's our hope during imminent danger. And so David is able to differentiate between times of imminent danger and times of trouble. And then the third part of the psalm is the last 4 verses, verse 19, 20, 21, and 22 and 23. I guess that's 25 verse, whatever. And it's God's provision during adversity. And by adversity, we're talking about imminent danger as well as trouble. And so again, for both of them, Again, God has provisions for both of them. So that's the outline that we're going to use today. But you need to be aware that if you break up the psalm into a different outline, you're going to walk away with different results. The outcome, if you will, the life lesson is going to change. And that's amazing. And truth of the matter is, one is not necessarily more valid than the other, because that's the way poetry is written. But again, so you need to be aware that depending on where your outline breaks are, it's going to change the life lesson. Okay, and so with this particular outline, I'm able to walk away with insight regarding Jesus' perspective of the cross, which is basically where we want to end up at. And so as we look at this psalm, again, I call it a psalm of trust. And again, part of the reason is because in this psalm, the word trust is mentioned 4 times. 4 times. 24 verses, but it's mentioned 4 times. So that's on the average, every 6 verses, trust. And so again, the English word trust is mentioned 4 times. But then you have another word that conveys almost the same concept, and that's the word hope. And so when you total it together again, 5 times we find a concept of trust in this particular psalm. And so very quickly, I want to give you some definitions. Next slide. And so the 3 concepts, or the 3 words that are used to describe that concept that we call trust, the first word is shaka. And you're going to find that word in verse 1 and 19, shaka. And what that Hebrew word means, it literally means to flee for protection, or to flee to for protection. Now there's a secondary definition to that word shaka, and that is to confide in. Now the second concept, or the second word used to convey that concept of trust, is the Hebrew word batak. And that word is going to be found in verse 6 and verse 14. The definition of this word is somewhat different. This word means to hie, as in hightail, to hie for refuge. Now, the second definition is to be confident in. Now, let's do a contrast. What's the difference between to confide in and to be confident in? You sat in the pews. You had confidence. You placed confidence in the pews that it would hold you up. But you didn't tell the pews your deepest, darkest secret, did you? You didn't confide in it. So, we confide in a friend. Listen, let me tell you something. Let me share something with you. So again, to confide in is when you're kind of, again, you don't just trust the external. Again, you trust the internal. Again, and so you're sharing something with one who who will maintain and keep that which you have shared precious. But then the first definition, shaka, to flee for protection. That word flee suggests an urgency. Again, you are running full speed. And the intent is there's an imminent danger. Your life is at stake. And so you're running to someone or something so that your life can be preserved immediately. Now, the second, batak, while it seems that there's urgency, it's not that urgent. It's not that urgent. Again, you high again, so you are moving hurriedly towards a place, but again, you're seeking not necessarily protection from an imminent danger, but simply a safe place, refuge, a safe place. So again, let me give you an example. Again, in 220. We was confronted with COVID, and we wanted a safe place to protect us from COVID. And so again, we created a safe place by keeping everybody 6 feet away from us. And so again, that that 5-foot barrier became our refuge. Again, it was a troubling time. Or some folks, they just chose to use their home as the place of refuge. I'm safe at home. I'm not leaving the house. Again, I'm safe here. Again, and so that's somewhat different than going to someone for protection. So again, the shaka, again, somebody is chasing you. Somebody's chasing you. What good is it to run into the house? They come in the house as well. The house is not going to be a place of safety, and they're right on your heels. On the other hand, somebody who is in a position to defend you, again, is that protection. And so again, there's a subtle difference. So again, the first concept has to do with an imminent danger, and not just imminent danger, again, the danger of death. Again, while the other one, again, is just hardships, difficult times, adversarial times. The third concept is rendered by the word hope, and that's in verse 24. And so in English, it's 24, so you don't need to know what the Hebrew is. I mean, what difference it is? They've already differentiated it by a different English word, but the definition of that word, that Hebrew word, is simply to wait patiently. To wait patiently. So here's the thing. When you are in imminent danger, you can't wait for protection. You need it right then and there. You can't wait. During times of trouble, you just simply need a safe place. But then when it comes to hope, that's a situation where, you know what, I can wait. I can wait. Lord, I'm sick. Are you dying? No. Okay, call me back later. You can wait. Take 2 aspirins, call me in the morning. So you can wait. And so you just kind of endure patiently, because you know God is going to deal with eventually. Again, when you are facing imminent danger, you can't, waiting patiently, waiting around till God gets to it. That doesn't work. Now, additionally, there is the word ashamed is going to be found 3 times in this particular psalm. And the reason I'm bringing it out is because the definition of that word shame is interesting as well. Now, and so the word ashamed you're going to find in verse 1, and then in verse 17 you're going to find it twice. But the definition of that word ashamed means to be disappointed or to be delayed. Or if you will, to paraphrase it, when David is saying, don't let me be ashamed, he's basically saying this: Lord, when I cry out to you, don't delay to help me. Don't delay to help me. Again, because, there's an urgency when I cry out to you. And so, again, to be ashamed. Don't let me be disappointed. I'm coming to you for help. I'm running to you for protection. Don't let me be disappointed. I'm running to you for safety. Don't disappoint me, is what that word ashamed means. So with that in mind, let's jump into the psalm itself, Psalm 31. And in verse 1, he says, in thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in thy righteousness. Bow down thine ear to me. Deliver me speedily. Be thou my strong rock, for a house of defense to save me. For thou art my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for thy name's sake, lead me and guide me. Pull me out of the net that they have laid privily for me, for thou art my strength. Here, David shares his perspective of a crisis that can be characterized by imminent danger. And so during the time of imminent danger, David's trust is placed in the Lord. In thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. And again, the Hebrew word trust has to do with, running to for protection, or fleeing to for protection, again, during a time of imminent danger. And so he's basically saying, during times of imminent danger, now don't run back to the city and to the safe of the city wall. Don't run to the palace. I don't run to the temple. I run to thee, O Lord. You're the one that I flee to for protection. And so again, we see David's plea in verses 1 through 4. We see, again, his plea during imminent danger. His plea is basically, number one, hear my cry. Again, when you break down his plea, what is it that you want, David? Number one, hear my cry. Number two, be my place of safety, or be my protection. Number three, respond quickly. This is what David is saying. And so again, in verse 1, let me never be ashamed. He's basically saying, respond quickly. The word trust, again, you're the one that I'm going to flee to when I'm in danger. So again, his plea is fourfold. Number one, hear my cry. Number two, be my protection or my place of safety. Number three, respond quickly, respond speedily. Number four, as I'm running from the hunters, as I'm running from the imminent danger, knowing that these folks are skilled hunters. Now, here's what a skilled hunter would do. They will cut you off. Again, they know which path you're coming down. They would cut you off so you can't go forward. They will kind of cut you off on the side so that you can't flee to the side, and they're going to cause you to go into a certain direction. They're going to, again, force you to go into a certain direction. Why? Because there's a trap ahead. That's what a skilled hunter does. So again, the skilled hunter will shoo you in a certain direction. Again, because there's something waiting for you there. Last week we came here and you know there was a bird inside the sanctuary. And so what Emil and I did, you know, when he went up to the balcony, again, we went up to the balcony, we opened the door. And then we just, again, shooed him in the direction that we wanted him to go into. Now, it could have been a trap. And so basically, because he actually went in the direction that we wanted him to go into, again, we could have trapped him if we chose to trap him. Well, we don't care for bird meat. Again, not the type of bird around here. And so again, skilled hunter will cause you to go in the direction that he wants you to go in. Why? Because he laid a trap for you. And so what David is saying, as I'm running from the imminent danger, as I'm running from these skilled hunters, as I'm running for those who are hunting for my life, I know that they've laid some traps ahead. And so, and again, I'm running full speed ahead. I don't have time to look at every nook and cranny to see what's there. I need you to lead and to guide my feet so that I don't step into the traps. So this is what David is saying. So again, his plea to the Lord. Hear my cry. Be my protection. Respond quickly and guide me around the traps. Guide me around the traps. In verse 1, he looks, as he focuses on God, and listen, understand there are different attributes of God. And he's not focusing on God's love. He's not focusing on God's strength. He's not focusing on God's power. And you would think that he would. His focus, when it comes to the Lord, his protection, his focus is not on God's strength, but God's righteousness. Hence, again, in thee, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be ashamed. Deliver me not in thy power. Deliver me not in thy might. He doesn't ask, deliver me in your strength. Deliver me in your righteousness. That's complete trust. That's complete trust. Yeah, you know how when you was a child and somebody was messing with you, and or your brother and sister were messing with you, and sometimes you may have run to your parent or somebody else. They messing with me. Do this. So you want to instruct the one who's going to protect you what to do. Beat them up. What David doesn't say that. He's not trying to tell God how to handle the situation. He's going to trust him. I come to you, and I'm trusting you in your righteousness. Whatever way you deem fit is the right way to handle this thing, handle it. And so again, he appeals to God based on his righteousness. I know that God's going to handle this in the right way. Okay, and so again, when it comes to imminent danger, David, he he trusts God as his protector, and he also trusts God to handle it his way. How often when we pray do we actually give God instructions? As if God needs instructions from us. Again, sometimes we just need to trust God in his wisdom, or if you will, in his righteousness. Let him decide how he's going to do it. And so we move on to the second part of the outline, starting in verse 5. Now, I will acknowledge, it is possible to have the first part, verses 1 through 5, and the second part starting with verse 6, but I don't think that that's the way it was intended. And at least that's not the way I'm going to present it. Part 2 starts with verse 5. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord God of truth. I have hated them that regard lying vanities, but I trust in the Lord. Again, this second part has to do with David's confidence or his trust during times of trouble. So again, all of a sudden, we're no longer talking about times of imminent danger. It's not a life-threatening situation. Again, it's just bad times, hard times. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord, God of truth. I have hated them that regard lying vanities, but I trust in the Lord. I will be glad and rejoice in thy mercy, for thou hast considered my trouble. Again, so we're talking about trouble. Thou hast known my soul in adversity. So we're talking about trouble and adversity, not necessarily danger. And has not shut me up into the hand of my enemies. Thou hast set my feet in a large room. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. My eye is consumed with grief, yea, my soul and my belly. For my life is spent with grief, and my years with sighings. So again, this is an extended period of time. Ain't nobody hunting him down. Again, he's in this situation for a long time. Again, this is his 2020. Again, my life is spent with grief, and my years with sighing. My strength faileth because of my iniquity, and my bones are consumed. I was a reproach among all my enemies, but especially among my neighbors, and a fear to my acquaintance. They that did see me without fled from me. I am forgotten as a dead man out of mind. I am like a broken vessel. Now, when you look at these words, at what he says, verses 9 through 12, keep in mind what was shared 2 weeks ago. Again, 2 weeks ago, we shared that David, he experienced a fall, a temporary fall, and that during that time he was smitten, according to the history of the Jewish people, he was smitten with leprosy. And during that time when he was smitten with leprosy, again, he was cut off from temple worship. He was cut off from access to the Sanhedrin. When you have leprosy, again, you're just cut off. And again, because of the disfigurement that takes place, again, people, they look at you horrified. And so when we read these verses, we can actually see where it seems that that's describing that particular situation. As we continue, verse 13, for I have heard the slander of many. Fear was on every side. While they took counsel together against me, they devised to take away my life. But I trusted in thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my God. My times are in thy hand. Deliver me from the hand of my enemies and from them that persecute me. Make thy face to shine upon thy servant. Save me for thy mercy's sake. Let me not be ashamed, O Lord, for I have called upon thee. Let the wicked be ashamed, and let them be silent in the grave. Let the lying lips be put to silence, which speak grievous things proudly and contemptuously against the righteous. So here again, he begins to share his confidence during times of trouble. In this scenario, he's no longer focusing on God's righteousness. Verse 5, he describes the Lord as the God of truth. The God of truth. And so he's focusing on God's truth. God's truth. Again, no longer God's righteousness. So during times of trouble, it's a matter of show me the truth. Show me the truth. So many times trouble comes upon us. And what do? We want to blame somebody else. It's not my fault. And we refuse to see the truth, which many times is, it's all on you. You're the problem. I'm my own problem during times of hardships. Again, I can't get a job. No, I can't get a job. People hold me back. No, you lazy. You won't get to work on time. You're the problem. Again, we don't want to know the truth because oftentimes the truth reveals, the flaws lies within ourselves. But nevertheless, David, again, he's trusting God implicitly. Listen, if the fault rests with me, let me see it. This is where David is at. Again, during times of trouble, show me myself, Lord. Don't show me other folks. Again, my marriage is all messed up. Show me myself. I'm not going to focus on what my spouse is doing wrong. Don't show me about my spouse. I can see about my spouse already. I have a hard time seeing myself. And so, again, he focuses on God as the God of truth. Verse 5, into thy hands I commit my spirit. Thou hast redeemed me, O God of truth. Now, and of course, verse 5, automatically for us Bible readers, it sounds familiar. Because these are the words spoken by Jesus on the cross. And so, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit did not originate with Jesus. We see similar words with Stephen as he was being stoned, where he commits his spirit into God's hands. And we know from history that that phraseology was something that the righteous commonly did as they faced death on their deathbeds. When they saw that they were dying, those were the words that the faithful would pray, Lord, into your hands I commit my spirit. It seems, however, that it originated not with Jesus, but it originated with David. And David was not sharing this within the context of imminent danger. He was not saying these words within the context of facing death. He was saying these words within the context of hard times, adversarial times, times of suffering, times of affliction. This is my life, Lord. What I'm going through, it's in your hands. I'm putting everything that I have is in your hands. So if it's your will to take me through this trial, if it's your will that I endure this suffering, I'm in your hands. And so it was a surrender. Again, David was surrendering completely to the Lord. If we remember again the story that was shared 2 weeks ago, David was had reached a place in his life where, the Lord testified, this is a man after my own heart. His righteousness was without flaw. The reputation that David had was that temptation had no power over him. Temptation had no power over him. He had the audacity, and we saw it in earlier Psalms, to tell the Lord, examine me, test me. He wanted to show the Lord that he was as faithful and as devoted as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God told him that in no uncertain terms, I'm going to test you. And you are going to fall. You're going to fail. And when he had fallen, he went through years of remorse, years of sorrow. And we're not talking about adultery with Bathsheba. He was simply, desiring another man's wife. He knew it was wrong. And during that time, the Lord began to deal with him. He has to see himself. Why am I going through this? He knows. He knows. And you're going to see it. He knows why he's going through this. Yes, he talks about his enemies, but he knows that he's the problem. And so as we continue, and so that phrase, into thy hands I commit my spirit, is simply a surrendering to God to do what you know to be best. You've shown me myself. However you need to deal with me, go ahead and do so. But nevertheless, which is why, as he prays, verse 6, he says, now, verse 5 and 6, you kind of have to, there's a flow of thought. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord God of truth. I have hated them that regard lying vanities, but I trust in the Lord. Now, the lying vanities have to do with idols. Note the contrast. God, the Creator, the Lord, He is a God of truth. The idols, they are lie. Again, they're they are liars. They are lying vanities. And so He contrasts again the Lord, who is a God of truth, again with the lying vanities of that the idols are. And King James, and most of your translations rendered, I have hated them that regard lying vanity, but I trust in the Lord. Now, keep in mind, the way poetry is written, it's written in such a way where there are oftentimes double meanings, more than one meaning in the same phrase. And this is one of those lines. And when you look at the Septuagint and a couple other translations, it's not rendered that way. The Septuagint, again, the Bible that Jesus used, the Bible that Paul used. That particular Bible says, Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord, God of truth. You have hated them that regard lying vanities. And so in the Hebrew, there's a duality about that statement, where, first of all, God hates those who will embrace idols. And David is simply thinking like God. He's simply agreeing with God. Because you hate those who embrace and who cling to lying idols, I do as well. And so that's the gist of that particular statement in verse 6. Again, when he says, I hate those who regard lying vanity, he's simply agreeing with God based upon the Hebrew. And so he indicates again in verse 6, but I trust in thee. So some folks trust in idols. Or, now here's the thing. If you're trusting in anything other than the Lord, even if it's not a statue, it's still a lying vanity. If you're trusting in friends, if you're trusting in the government, if you're trusting in your pastor instead of God, you're trusting in a lying, useless thing. And that's what the word vanity refers to, something that is useless, something that is a waste. And so for him, he doesn't go there. He trusts in the Lord. Verse 7, I will be glad and rejoice in thy mercy. You've showed me the truth about myself. I am relying on your mercy. What is mercy? Mercy is not getting the evil you deserve. Contrast that with justice. What is justice? Getting exactly what you deserve. What is grace? Getting the favor or the blessings you don't deserve. Notice it's interesting because in the earlier Psalms, David was saying, reward me according to my righteousness. Not anymore. He's seen himself. He now appeals to God during times of trouble. He appeals to God's mercy. In other words, I know I deserve this. Everything that's going on in my life, I know I deserve it. He doesn't have that attitude. Why me? See, again, that's why that we often know, why is this happening to me? If you take a moment to figure out, you can come up with a multitude of reasons why it's happening to you. Now, David don't go that way. For him, it's not about why me. He knows there are a lot of reasons that this is happening to him. Again, have mercy. And so he appeals to God's mercy. I would be glad and rejoice in thy mercy, for thou hast considered my trouble. Thou hast known my soul in adversity. In other words, even during times of trouble, God still has a relationship, an intimate relationship with him. He is intimately aware of me and what I'm going through. So God, again, is not unaware of our trials, our suffering, and our tribulations. And so again, as he continues, verse 8 and 9, and thou hast not shut me up into the hands of the enemy. Thou hast set my feet in a large room. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. My eyes is consumed with grief, yea, my soul and my belly. What David is saying is simply this. During times of trouble, he recognized that he is not completely at the mercy of his enemies. Even during times of trouble, he got some wiggling room. God has set him in a large room. He's not between a rock and a hard place. He got some wiggling room. Again, he is not completely at the mercy of his enemies. He's at the mercy of God. Again, no matter how bad things may get in your life, you're not completely at the mercy of those who hate you. You're not completely at the mercy of those who despise you. Believe it or not, you got some wiggling room. Again, there's some room for you, again, to move into a place where God will allow you to go. Verse 10, he continues, for my life is spent with grief, my years with sighing, my strength faileth because of so-and-so. My strength faileth again because of my wife. My strength faileth because of my kids. My strength faileth because of my husband. My strength faileth because of my boss. No. My strength faileth because of my iniquities. David has seen the truth. It's nobody else's fault. It's on him. Now keep in mind, what is iniquity? Iniquity is not synonymous to sin. Iniquity is not synonymous, it's not another word for transgression or trespasses. The word iniquity, the Hebrew word, refers to the punishment or the suffering that is associated with sin. That's what iniquity is. The punishment for sin, the suffering for sin. And so what David is saying, all this grief that I'm enduring, again, all the suffering that I'm enduring, again, is because of my punishment for sin. Iniquity, my punishment for sin. This is my punishment. And he recognized he's not being punished because of somebody else's sin. It's because of his sin that he's being punished. And so again, the truth, again, he asked God, again, he approached God as the God of truth. And here's the truth. Again, a lot of times, troubling times, adversarial times often is a punishment for sin. Okay? It's a punishment for sin. But look at everybody else. They worse than I am. How come nothing is happening to them? Well, maybe God don't love them like he loves you. I'm not going to punish somebody else's kids before I punish mine. Again, my child acts up, your child acts up, I'm jacking my child up first. No, again, especially if I don't know your child. And so again, God may be letting somebody else get away with much worse. Why? Again, because he don't love them like he loves you. Or on the other hand, maybe he's waiting to get around to them. It's not their turn yet. It's not their turn yet. Again, I remember, again, as children, one time my mother lined all 5 of us up and whipped us. She didn't whip us at the same time. We had to wait our turn. Can you imagine that? Stand in line till your time comes. And she started with the eldest and worked her way down. My older sister couldn't say, how come you're not beating on Ricky? Oh, his time is coming. This is your turn. But can you imagine the trauma, the emotional trauma that was going through Ricky's head? As he is the last one in line, watching what's happening to everybody else. My prayer that day was, Lord, let her be tired. Let her be tired before my turn comes. So again, he recognizes it's because of his iniquity, and he doesn't have a problem with it. As we continue, verse 11 through 13, I was reproached among all my enemies, but especially among my neighbors. Again, the folks who he should have been close to, again, he was a reproach among them. Again, especially among my neighbors, and the fear of my acquaintances. He's talking about those close to him. They that did see me without, they fled from me. I am forgotten as a dead man out of mind. I am like a broken vessel. For I have heard the slander of many. Fear was on every side while they took counsel together against me. They devised to take away my life. David recognized that during times of trouble, friends cannot always be relied upon. Again, David, what is your confidence during times of trouble? It's not friends. What's your confidence during times of trouble? Who are you trusting on and who are you relying on during times of trouble? It's not my neighbors. Who are you trusting on? It's not my cousins. He recognizes that during times of trouble, during times of adversity, during times of hardships, you cannot rely on your friends. Sometimes they may want to be there, but they can't be there. Sometimes they can be there, but they don't want to be there. And it's not because, again, they don't love you. When you care for someone dearly, it hurts you to see them suffering. And there are some folks, they can't bear to see their loved ones suffering. So it's better for them that they just don't go near. Again, to spare themselves the pain. But bottom line, during times of trouble, you can't always rely on your friends or those who are close to you. As he continues, verse 14, 15 to 16, but I trusted in thee, O Lord. I said, thou art my God. I'm not trusting my friends. I'm not relying on my friends. I'm trusting you, O Lord. My times are in your hands, not my parents' hands, not my spouse's hands. Again, my times, the times of my suffering, they're in your hands. Deliver me from the hand of my enemies and from them that persecute me. Make your face to shine upon your servant. Save me for thy mercy's sake. Again, it's not about my righteousness anymore. He knows, again, his righteousness is not what he thought it was. He has to rely on God's mercy. He's no longer praying, judge me according to my righteousness. He's no longer saying, examine me. Now I need your mercy. It's all about God's mercy. Again, only God can be relied upon during times of adversity. Have you been there yet? Again, during times of adversity, you reach your lowest point and you try to call somebody. Sometimes you can't get them. Call on God. His line is never busy. Again, that was an old song too. His line is never busy. Tell him what you want. And the truth of the matter is you don't even have to dial. Just call on him. During times of adversity, only God can be relied upon. Verse 17 and 18. Let me not be ashamed, O Lord, for I have called upon thee. Again, we'll stop right there. In the same way, during time of imminent danger, again, David's prayer is, don't let me be disappointed. And the same is true even during times of hardships, during times of adversity, during times of prolonged suffering or affliction. It's the same appeal. Don't let me be ashamed. Again, don't let me be disappointed. Some folks deserve to be disappointed. David recognizes that. And so he says, again, let me not be ashamed, O Lord, for I have called upon thee. Let the wicked be ashamed, and let them be silent in the grave. Specifically, who is he talking about? Those who embrace the lying vanities. Verse 18, let the lying lips be put to silence, which speak grievous things, proudly and contemptuously against the righteous. Again, some people deserve to be put to shame. In verse 18, he speaks of, those who speak things proudly. He's talking about the arrogant, the proud. Proud folks deserve to be put to shame. It's what David recognizes. Arrogant people deserve to be put to shame. But again, who is he talking about more specifically? Well, he's talking about a whole bunch of folks, but at the very minimum, go home with this. Those too proud to trust God need to be put to shame. Some folks are too proud to trust God. Some folks are too proud, too arrogant to rely on God. Again, they're still trying to do it themselves, still trying to work it out, still trying to fix themselves. Again, if in your midst of struggles and suffering and hardship, if you're convinced that you can handle it all on your own without seeking the Lord, you too proud. Again, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And so that's David's prayer. Again, let those who, again, are too proud and speak, proud things, let them be put to shame. During verses 19 through 20, 20 on down, he deals with God's provisions during those difficult times. What is God's provisions? Verse 19. Now, actually, I was able to identify four things that God provides for his people during times of adversity. Four things. Verse 19. Oh, how great is thy goodness, which thou hast laid up for them that fear thee, which thou hast wrought for them that trusted in thee before the sons of men. He talks about God's great goodness that has been stored up for those who fear him, and how he showers or he pours out that great goodness on those same people in the sight of everybody else. And so again, the first thing that we see that God provides for us, God publicly, visibly in front of everybody else, he showers his goodness upon us. So yes, even during the times of adversity, during the times of trouble, again, his goodness is being reserved for us to be poured out upon us publicly, again, in front of those who, again, if you will, chose to persecute us and so forth. This is kind of what happened with Job. Job, during his time of suffering, his friends thought that God had abandoned him. But at the end of the story, what happens? God publicly and visibly, again, in front of everybody, again, pours out his goodness upon Job. Again, that's a provision that we have from God. Continuing, verse 18, let the lying lips be put to silence, verse 20. Thou shalt hide them in the secret of thy presence from the pride of men. Thou shalt hide them in the secret of thy presence. God shelters. He shelters us from the plots and the accusations of others. During those times of difficulties, during those times of distress, during those times of affliction, God shelters us from the plots and the accusations, the fingers of blame. He shelters us from those things. And so what we see, again, he provides secret shelter. Secret shelter. In verse 21, blessed be the Lord, for he hath shown me his marvelous kindness in a strong city. Again, his marvelous kindness. Again, that speaks of his unfailing love. When we come under attack, God shows his unfailing love when we come under attack. And so again, the other thing that he provides his unfailing love. Continuing, verse 22, for I said in my haste, I am cut off from before thine eyes. See, again, there was a time David thought that God had abandoned him. He thought that God had cut him off. Again, and we saw that in the, Psalm 30. Again, when you hid your face. Again, all this stuff went, no, God didn't hide his face. Again, he just, began to chastise him. God, again, parents don't stop looking at you when they chastising you. You know, they pay even more attention to you. Again, because, you know, they want to make sure when you jump that they can still hit you where they want to hit you. When you duck, they can still hit you. Again, so they're paying even more attention to you when they're chastising you. And so, again, what we see, again, in verse 22, for I said in my haste, I am cut off from before thine eyes. Nevertheless, thou heardest the voice of my supplication when I cried unto thee. We still have God's personal attention. Again, God's eyes are always inclined towards us, even when we're suffering, and his ears are always inclined towards our cries, again, during those times of suffering. And so, his personal attention is intensified during those times. Again, he hasn't backed away. His personal attention has been intensified during those times. And so, again, the four things that God provides for us, he provides his goodness in a public way. He provides for us a secret shelter. He provides his unfailing love, and he provides his personal attention. Verse 23, again, he says, "O love the Lord, all ye his saints, for the Lord preserveth the faithful, and plentifully rewardeth the proud doer." God's provision should result in love from his people. All these things that have been provided, David said, y'all need to love the Lord. Those of you who are saints, y'all need to show your love to the Lord. God's provisions during time of adversity, God's provisions during time of suffering should result in the love of his people being demonstrated in a much greater way. And that verse 23 again makes it very clear. The proud, they're going to get their comeuppance. Again, he plentifully rewarded the proud doer. Again, the proud will get their comeuppance. The proud are those who will focus more on themselves than on God. Those are the proud. Those who will focus more on themselves than on God. During times of suffering, it's all about me instead of what is God doing, what is God saying. When times are going good, it's still about me instead of praising God for the good times. No matter what it is, again, we just make our lives all about us. It's interesting. We even go to church because of ourselves. Oh, I really enjoyed the service. It's not for your enjoyment. It's not for your enjoyment. Service. Think about it. I enjoyed the service. So again, if the service is vacuuming the floor, none of us enjoying that. It's not about you. It's about the Lord. Again, but we make everything about us. Again, I had a good time. That's not why you go to church. That's not why you worship. And so, but again, the bottom line, again, the proud are those who would focus more on themselves than on the Lord. If we have properly outlined this psalm, verses 1 through 4, dealing with David's attitude or his confidence during imminent danger, verses 5 through 19 having to do with not imminent danger, but simply times of adversity, times of hardship, times of suffering, difficult times, then we can learn a lesson about Jesus' perspective of the cross. Because as the Lord, he would have known the context of "into thy hands I commit my spirit." He would have known the context. He would have known that the context was not about imminent death, but simply difficult times. And so I suggest to you that based upon the fact that Jesus quoted verse 5 in Luke 23:46, that tells us something. Again, if indeed the context of verse 5 is times of trouble, then Jesus did not see the cross as a threat of death, but simply as a time of suffering. See, most of us, if we are hanging on the cross, we see that as a threat of death. I'm going to die. And I suggest to you, Jesus did not see the cross as pending death. He did not see, again, his journey to Calvary as a threat of death. He just saw it as a time of suffering. And when you look at what David said, again, much of what David said can also apply to Jesus Christ. Verse 7, again, "I will be glad and rejoice in thy mercies, for thou hast considered my troubles, and thou hast known my adversity." Again, it was a time of trouble. That word trouble also refers to a time of misery. That word refers to depression. Yeah, this was not a great time in Jesus' life. Again, but he was not facing the threat of death. Jesus' confidence on the cross was the same as David's. In verse 8 and 9, again, we saw that David understood that he was not completely at the mercy of his adversaries. And on the cross, Jesus understood that he was not completely at the mercy of the soldiers. He was not completely at the mercy of those who hated him. He was not completely at the mercy of the scribes and Pharisees, which is why he was even able to pray for them. Again, Jesus understood he was not at the mercy of Satan when he was on the cross. In verse 10, David said, "For my life is spent with grief, my years with sighing, my strength failed because of my iniquity." Jesus understood that his suffering on the cross was simply punishment for sin. Not his sin, but our sin. He fully understood that his suffering, his temporary suffering, again, not a threat of death, that his suffering was simply punishment for sin. Verse 13, 14, and 15, or verse 11, 12, and 13, David recognizes that he could not rely on his friends during times of trouble. The disciples had fled. Yes, his mother was there, but she couldn't do anything but cry. John was there, but he couldn't come down off the cross. Jesus fully understood that during his time of suffering, he could not rely on his friends. And so he says, as he hung on the cross in Luke 23, verse 46, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." He understood that during his time on the cross, he could only rely on God, and he did so. Was he concerned about the threat of death? No. Because he understood that when he commended his spirit into the hands of his Father, life would continue. And after 3 days and 3 nights, asleep in the ground, he rose up with all power. Did he know that he was going to get up? Absolutely. He told the Jewish people, "Destroy this body, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." Days before he went to Jerusalem, he warned his disciples that, "I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be killed, but I will rise up again on the 3rd day." Again, there was no threat of death for him. It was just a time of suffering through which he, again, because of his trust in the Lord, will come forth victorious. Jesus understood the cross is simply, again, a brief moment of suffering. And so this is why, again, I'm convinced that the outline is verses 1 through 4. Again, David's confidence, David's trust during times of imminent danger, and then verses 5 through 19. It's not about imminent danger. "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." No, that's not what we say when we're about to die. That's simply, again, how we surrender to the Lord when he allows us to spend a little bit of time going through some hard times. We surrender. Again, we place ourselves into his hands and his hands alone. Let us pray. Father, we say thank you